What is your name, position within your community?
So my name's Kashagama. Daniel is baptism, I suppose. Then the regnal name, the name they give you when you become king, you choose a name, is Ndahura II, meaning I'm the second king of Basongora who's named Ndahura. Basongora has had about, we estimate about 45 to 48 kings since its founding, yeah. Our kingdom is not hereditary. No. Actually, most kingdoms in Africa were not, but there's a sort of a protocol that makes it appear to be so. The kings are always picked by a council of elders. So once they are picked, they all say they're the sons or daughters of the late king, but not necessarily biologically, right? But, you know, in terms of symbolism, that's required. So I am descended from some kings of Basongora, but the council of elders decides that this person is the one we've chosen. So there's a council of elders. For those who come from Kasese, the head of that council is called Mzee Kafuda. You might know him from Kabirizi. He is the second one. Before him was Samuel Ntungwa, was the head of the council. So that's the person I report to if I have a problem. If you were to depose me, I have to hand over to them and then they can pick another person. Yeah, so I cannot misbehave because I have bosses also. That's the way it works.
Briefly share the history of your tribe and how you settled in this area.
We're indigenous here. At least we think that the people who were here initially, who were keeping cattle in this area, are the people who are ancestors. But we have found that there's at least 2 or 3 different peoples who fit that description. The first one is people called Bakama. It's now a title meaning king, but there was a group called Kama at some point here. And they are called that because they used to milk cows. Cows that are main staple for us here in terms of, we don't eat cows actually, we just raise them. It's taboo to kill them. I don't know if you're aware of that. So I've been to places where people will come and say, you must be eating cow meat. And I say, no, we don't. It's taboo. People do it now because they're violating the laws, right? We raise cows, you drink their milk, you use their products, you cannot kill them. If they die, you bury them like people. That's the thing. So we can eat meat of other animals, but not those ones. So if we feel we need meat or the protein, you tie the cow. There's a special place, one of the veins, not artery. If you hit an artery, you kill the cow. There's a vein that you raise, it comes up in a bulge, and you shoot it with a special arrow, and you collect about 1 liter or 2 of blood, and then you can use that for food. And the cow has to survive. If it dies, you cannot take the blood. It's taboo. So you cannot go to the abattoir and buy blood. That's gross. So we don't eat meat normally, except during emergencies if there's a problem. Cows were very hard to raise in the past, so maybe now it's easier. But those days, if you had a cow or 2, if it died, it would be a total disaster for a family. We have another group called the Bahuma, which used to be a priesthood. Now it's sort of referred to as a tribe of any cattle keepers in Western Uganda. They have a name, Bahema, if you're in the Congo, or Bahima, if you're in Ankole. Here it's called Huma. But it meant and referred specifically to one group of people. There used to be some iron smelting. And when they were making iron smelters, the Besma converters, I don't know if you know them. It's sort of a brick structure that you put the metal ore in, and then you light fires underneath, and the fire has to be extremely hot and has to melt that rock. And then the rock has to flow out into different basins, and one of those basins actually has metal in it, as opposed to slag or something else. So that whole process requires bellows. You know bellows, the things used to pump? So those bellows can only be made, or used to be made from fresh cow skin. So the people who used to supply the cows for making the bellows, they would kill that cow on that site and pray about it. So it's such sort of a sacrifice of a bull. And then they make the metal, the iron. The iron itself is what is called huma. And the people who treat or provide the skins or who do the smithing are called bahuma, meaning the people of the iron. But now it's become sort of the name of the whole class of people. But it referred specifically to a priesthood that was in charge of sacrificing those bulls for that function. What are the name then? The Bachwezi, you've heard of Bachwezi? Well, in our tribe, Bachwezi just simply means a judge or a commander, somebody in charge. It's from Kutra, meaning to decide. So the Basongora are also referred to as Bachwezi. So if I come to your house and you're the head of the household, I ask Omchwezi Arum, is the Mchwezi present? So it means anybody in charge of an area. So the Mchwezi of this function is Mr. Mike. The Mchwezi of Uganda is Museveni. The Mchwezi of Kenya is Ruto. Because time has passed, people have forgotten. They now use Bachwezi as a cult for worshipping God knows what. We've had influxes of immigrants coming in and joining us, massive ones, including some people called the Sabaki from Western Kenya, the Swahili, Pokomo, all that. At one point, we think about 400-500 years ago, they came here. And shortly after, there was conflict in South Sudan or in Sudan, and we got a big influx of people from Rumbek. So my clan particularly are from that group. When my particular clan is called Lebeki or Balebeki, and our ancestor was called Olum, and his son was Nyabongo, but the Sudanese Shiluk refer to him as Labongo, and he had a daughter called Nyatoro, who married the king of Basongora. But one of the clans that came out of that union are called Babito. They're the royal clans in this area. The Babito are a sub-clan of my clan. But in Acholi, we are called Palabek. So any place you find that means they're Basongora from here. So we're connected, all of us, like that.
So another question is, what is the perception of climate change within your community?
Climate change, the term for it, I think we're trying to figure it out. I think it is Mpinduka Yobuhangwa Bwensi. A change in the nature of the world, basically climate. So it's a big problem here, of course, because the weather is erratic, and everybody's noticed that over the last few years. When I was a child, I never saw the peak. I think I saw the peak once in all my childhood, all of I think 15 years before I left this place. When I got back, every year I see the peak 6-7 times a year. So something's changed about the weather here. The rains come at the wrong time. Droughts come at the wrong time. The dry season's in the wrong time. So it's a problem. It's very hard to gauge what to do because it's like guesswork. You think it's time to plant and it's not. You think the cow should be grazing someplace because they normally do that every year, but then the thing is the grass there is dry, right? So that's a problem. The community is fully aware that something's gone wrong with the climate. I think it's everybody now in the world.
Describe how climate change has affected Mount Rwenzori and surrounding areas.
Well, the first thing is that Kasese area here or has the largest sources of water in Uganda. When I was a kid, there were over a dozen rivers. Now there's about half a dozen, including this one, Nyamwamba, right here, about 200 meters down here, that kept flooding and destroying things. And it's going to destroy the town because the town is built around that river. There's Mobuku, there's Sevu, there's other rivers, Kahocha, and I think towards when you're going to Katunguru, you get to Nyamagasani, right? So all those rivers are the large ones that are remaining, but they were all feeding off the glacier. The glacier is gone, so there's less water. Not only that, because of deforestation, when it rains in the mountain, which it does, it catches all the water from the Atlantic Ocean currents, hit this mountain. They then form the rain clouds that then supply the whole of Eastern Central Africa with water. The only other sources, of course, are the mountains Elgon and Kilimanjaro and Mount Kenya, but this one's the biggest water tower in Africa, basically. It supplies all the water that goes into the Atlantic through the Congo River and other tributaries, as well as all the rivers that go through the Nile. They all come from here in Virunga Mountain, right? But because of the change in the vegetation, what's happening is that every time it used to rain there, the water would be grabbed and frozen into the glacier. Now the trees are cut. When it rains, all the water comes down in a rush. Then we get the floods. And when it's not raining, the water dries up entirely, whereas it was being released every dry season, slowly in bits. So all through the year, the water was always about the same level. Now we have situations where the water's drying, the rivers are drying completely almost, or flooding. There is no happy medium. So that's a big problem. Unfortunately, people have been cutting trees here like mad. You plant a tree, they cut it. We've had multiple efforts by WWF, by different agencies, all planting these hills, but you can see they're bare. So if you get a chance to take them to Rwenzori Founders, I don't know if you've gone there, they can see the hill behind there. It looks the way that these hills are supposed to look 100 years ago. It's really forested and wooded. But that's no longer the case. All these trees, all these hills you can see are bare completely almost. And they're built on. So we have begun getting landslides like the ones that were famously in Bududa. We've had a big one, I think 2 years ago. People died on the other side of the hill. So the change in the environment is causing extreme events more frequently.
What traditional methods does your tribe use to predict weather patterns?
Through the falling leaves or the change in the grass or certain plants, right? Also, if it's going to rain, usually the heat feels different. The heat feels more humid. So you can tell if it's going to be a wet evening that it's very hot in the morning. The smell of the air, right? You can tell if it's dry air or if it's wet or humid, depending on the season, right? Certain types of body changes you can feel in your body because the weather is changing. The word for season in Rusongola is Ekitoigo. So each Ekitoigo has characteristics to it, each season, that you notice in the plants and in the way that migrating birds. If you notice birds coming that come every year at a certain time, you know that these birds are coming from, let's say, a faraway place, and that they usually come before the rains or before the dry season. So that's what's happening. Also, you have to remember that this whole area is a massive breeding ground for birds from all across Africa. Sometimes we see Siberian eagles here. I see Egyptian ibises, the black and white ibises. They're no longer in Egypt, but they're here in Kasese. That's a weird thing. So even the bird migrations will usually let you know that something's about the weather. So the people who've been watching this for a long time will tell you, oh yeah, we're going to have a drought based on these clues. Unfortunately, the number of people who can predict are getting fewer and fewer. And the younger people, it's just academic. We don't know how to do this. And I cannot pretend to tell you that I know exactly when the dry season is coming. I can tell these days if it's going to rain some day or two before. So I've been lucky about that I can sense now. But there's all people who will tell you, this rain is short, don't even bother doing whatever. It's not going to be there. And it works out that way. And I don't know how they do it. But I'm sure they're reading off clues that I'm explaining. There are things about the weather they're looking at. Of course, the thing that destroys all this is that people are cutting trees left and right. They don't care, and killing birds. We have rookeries here for crested cranes, egrets, and those herons. And also the hammerkops, those birds that look like hammers. There's one we had here and people were burning the nest. They were trying to cut the tree. And 2 weeks ago I had to go and take a whole truckload of wood because they cut my trees. When I came from Canada in 2011, you could see the main road from here. And you could hear all the vehicles in the main road and the trading center. These trees have helped to dampen the sound and to hide the view. But there are very few places where you find this many trees in Kasese. People are cutting trees everywhere. So that's a concern. It's going to interfere with our ability to understand the weather because we're destroying the clues and the evidence around us. So that's a concern, yeah. And it wasn't always the case in the past. In ancient times, trees were off limits. If you want to cut certain types of trees, you had to get permission from the king. Other trees you had to get permission from a chief. So you just couldn't cut any tree any which way you wanted. But that's happened now.
So no agricultural practices that your tribe uses to adopt to harsh weather conditions.
At some point around 1910, when Basongora was being shut down and cut up into pieces and distributed between different kingdoms and to states, Basongora stopped looking after cows and began digging. And I've seen pictures from 1910 showing that Basongora had bigger banana plantations than Buganda at some point. Along Kazinga Channel, where you're saying Katunguru. Yeah, so the Katunguru was at one point the largest city in Uganda. You'd go from Entebbe, which was the capital, right through all of Uganda to get to Katunguru to find another city of equivalent size. You cannot believe that Katunguru looks bare now. After it became a national park, the houses have collapsed that were there and it's gone. Also, it wasn't Katunguru, it's Kantunguru. It's the name of a woman. She was a queen of Basongora. A regular queen, that means she ruled in her own right as queen, not as a wife of a king. So Basongora is one of the few kingdoms in Africa that has multiple rulers who are women. Yes, this palace is called the Ikamiro because the last major queen was called Kojere III Ikamiro. She ruled for 3 years from 1886 to 1889. Who's from Kisinga here, you said? You know Chirembo? Yes. That was where her palace was located. It was dug, they dug the hill out with their hands and put a palace inside for this woman. And she was young and she never married. She died unmarried. And she had her herd of cows and she gave her herd of cows to her grandfather, who was the commander of the Basongora army. And he was my great-great-great-great-grandfather. So yeah, the agricultural practices is that Basongora mostly grow food that's related to utensils. Like for instance, these trees we used to make ebyanzi. I don't know if people know what ebyanzi is. It's a type of milk pot. You see them in Angola, we have the same type. Yeah. So those are made from these, what are these called? Albizia. Then also we grow calabashes. I think every tribe in Uganda grows calabashes, right? So those are actually grown around homesteads. We grow certain types of herbs for food. And unfortunately, most homesteads now do not have those things because they buy plastic cups from the store. There is no need for a calabash or whatever. Although, increasingly, if you go to rich homes, you will find they have a house, a round house on the side for storage of those things, because they're realizing that we're getting plastic contamination by every time we use bottles, right? And so they are now feeding themselves using those natural things. And it's going around, going back to that, even in Europe now. If you don't have a glass bottle, you'd rather use something natural. Wood, bamboo, or calabash. Gourds, yeah? So I think they're coming back in style, but those are things that Basongora grew. Many people who are Basongora will deny it, say, you know, we've never grown anything, we've never dug. It's not true. We do have that. And we have seasons listed and months. And 1 month, I think September is Isiga, meaning it's a planting month. And we also grew millet and sorghum. Those are our staples, but they've been replaced with maize, which has long chain carbohydrates, if you know what that is, and they don't digest, they don't break down in our bodies. If it has aflatoxins, you've heard of those, they cause cancer. And there's a cancer epidemic in South Africa because they eat more maize than we eat here. Whereas the fungus on millet is what they use to make tetracycline. It helps to make bones stronger. So we are abandoning healthy food for maize that is not healthy over the last 100 years. And so we're weaker physically. And I know in West Nile and in South Uganda, they still use millet for food a lot, yeah, more than us here. So it means that you're still producing athletes more than the rest of Uganda, most likely. Yeah, because of the diet. and that you have nicer teeth and stronger ones, and better skin. Yeah. And what? Handsome. He says and handsome also.
Ah.
Okay.